Welcome to Integrative You Radio, hosted by Dr. Nick Carruthers and yours truly, Dr. Nicole Rivera. This is the place where you become limitless. We are covering the latest and greatest topics, of course, in a disruptive fashion, around integrative medicine, mental health, and human behavior. We are also covering how those topics affect the human and family dynamics. We will be sprinkling in some truth bombs for our healthpreneurs so they can join us in our mission to evolve healthcare. If you are health curious and growth focused, you are in the right place. But buckle up, because this is real, this is raw, and this is disruptive. This is Integrative You Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Integrative You Radio. If you're here with us on YouTube, you can see that you are graced with Dr. Nick's presence. It's the first time in a while that we finally are settled and have childcare since our move to Italy. So you're going to see a lot more of him. Hear a lot more of him.
Maybe both.
So this topic that we're covering today is actually was actually because of something that Dr. Nick said, and I was like, "Ooh, good one. Gonna write that down." And we were primarily talking about the idea that doing anything in isolation, people can get discouraged. People can feel like they're hitting a plateau, they're maybe not seeing results at all, and they essentially get discouraged and either take a pause or just fully throw in the towel. We've obviously seen this many, many times over when it comes to health. You know, people not having the right data, not having the right strategy, and feeling like they're doing a lot of things, they're spending a lot of time, they're spending a lot of energy, and they're spending a lot of money, and they're not necessarily seeing the results or the outcomes that they hoped for. But in reality, there are a lot of people having a very similar experience in the personal development world and even the business development world. You know, I think nowadays, especially if you're an avid listener to our podcast, you know, you've probably heard of Dr. DeMartini, who's doing a lot of human behavior work and personal development through understanding your values. You maybe have heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and maybe you started to get into meditation or yoga and breathing practices. So there's a lot of different things out there. And what we always say, it's not about what you do, but it's about how you do it. And even to take that a step further, it's about when you do it. And so we were talking about this idea of doing personal development. And for some people, not necessarily, one, feeling like it's really difficult, or not necessarily seeing outcomes and feeling very frustrated with it. And Dr. Nick, I will let you share your quote that just literally rolled off the tongue as we were, you know, in the kitchen having this conversation. And for me, it was just like a huge, like, holy shit, aha moment.
Well, I forget exactly how I said it. It was probably better in the moment. But I was pretty much stating that our expression can only reach capacity due to the strength of the vessel, and we're the vessel. So it's like a lot of people, as you're saying, we focus on isolation of, you know, I want to make the physical body stronger or more flexible, or I want to just focus on detoxing all the toxins and infections out of the body, or I just want to focus on, you know, increasing the mental capacity and awareness, or I'm just going to focus on the energetic aspect and meditation. And each one of those they're great, but they're limited by its individuality, hence, you know, isolation versus being integrative. But it's also, you're going to have a cap to the mental, to the physical, to the energetic based on your vessel. So energy flows bidirectional, and you have to focus on both sides of that container.
Yeah. Well, the exact way you said it is you can only express power based on the strength of the vessel. And I know that for like where my mind was at in that moment, we were talking a little bit about what lights me up. And I said, I love helping people find like their inner badass, their inner powerhouse, and finding that so that all of their limitations and their limiting beliefs fall to the side, or they're less likely to hold them back because they're so inspired in that moment. And I think that's actually what really probed this statement is like, well, you can only express so much power based on the strength of the vessel. And I was like, and I think for me, I had all these flashbacks of for myself. And then of course I always have the flashbacks of clients and thinking about when my body wasn't strong, which meant that wasn't just about the physicality, but it was also, I wasn't neurologically strong. I wasn't chemically strong. So, how that all ties together is my body wasn't in a great place. So, my serotonin wasn't in a great place. My stress hormones weren't in a great place. My dopamine wasn't in a great place. And so there was only so much I could accomplish when it came to the type of personal development that I was doing at that time. Because for those of you that know us, for me, being the CEO of the company, a lot of it was about how could I be a better leader and how could I run a better business because that was a pain point for a long period of time. And there was there was progress, plateau, progress, plateau, progress, plateau. And now because we've made such a significant life change and it's not that like I have all the tools, like I've done the detoxes, I've done the supplements, I've done the therapies, I have amp coils, I have red lights, I have all those things, but it was changing my environment and decreasing my stress load by changing my environment and also being in a place, Italy, that resonates more with me and who I am and my values. That was a huge catalyst to strengthening my vessel, which has actually melted away a lot of the things that were holding me back in my personal development, in my meditation practice, in my, you know, um, neurological development.
Well, I mean, I always look at things bidirectionally. And so you just stated usually the opposite of how I look at things. Um,
By the way, I'm totally like, I was laughing before, for those of you on YouTube watching my face before, I'm like, he put on his glasses and it was like full Clark Kent. Like, it's just like
they're my superhero
totally,
glasses. Yeah,
literally.
yeah.
So I'm kind of
No,
chuckling
I'm
towards
just back
that.
all to being Nick.
Yeah, now
Oh,
it's like
glasses
full
on.
blown, like Clark Kent status. Anyway, continue.
So yeah, I mean, you can do um, quote unquote one thing to change. So when you say vessel, I look at it as we have all these different vessels. We have the physical vessel, which is, the muscle skeletal, the nervous system, the biochemical aspect, the hormones, all that's physical stuff. We have the mental vessel, which that you talked about Demartini being one, what I believe after studying a lot of different people and techniques, the master. At the mental vessel, you have the meditation aspect of the energetic vessel. You have all these different vessels, and most people just focus on one at a time, and that limits them. But you were talking about making a change. Hi, Mr. Wooks, about making a change that affected all those vessels. So, you coming to Italy, you changing your environment, but that's like Bruce Lipton's work is the environment is actually dictating the expression of the cell, of the DNA. You look at Einstein, when you look at physics, he always talked about how it's everything around that dictates the expression of the particle. We're that particle. So if you can uh, get crystal clear what's going to be most congruent to serving your top values, and if that's changing your environment, that's going to change the vessel because we are the vessel. The vessel is the particle. So you can look at it that way, and then you can also break down how that gave you more space to be able to meditate. That gave you less stress that's being processed through the nervous system. So it's pretty beautiful how you can take a macro perspective to be able to strengthen the vessel, but you can also break it down and look at all the micro aspects to change it as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think that one of the other points that we want to drive home here is the fact that yes, everything is integrative when it comes to your mind, your energy, your physicality, your chemistry. And it's not to lose hope or be disappointed or discouraged when you're not seeing the progress that you hoped for. It's just that you might have your focus on the wrong thing at the wrong time. Because working on your own personal development is never a bad thing. But if your physical health is one of the things that's more foundational, and let me be really, really clear here, is that if you go to Joe Dispenza, they're going to say that the mind and the energy, that has to change in order to change your physical body. And yes, in certain situations and in certain people, that is 100% true. And then there are some others that their body, their health, it's so weak and neurologically things are not firing and connecting that might be more foundational in order to then do the personal development, the meditative, the energetic work. So no one is wrong. It's just nothing is that black and white.
I
There's
always say
no, go ahead.
you need to start out with your strengths, because that's where you're going to get the most results. So if somebody's, mentally strong, well, let's use that strength to help actually change the body. And that's, in Dispenza's case, and his body was weak. He was laying in a hospital bed. He couldn't do anything. So he had to use that. He was forced to use that. Is that the only way? No, because you can do body movement, and that's going to activate proprioception, the body's awareness in
Yep.
space. And that's one of the best nutrients for the nervous system. And by the nervous system, as that gets more clear and stronger, you're able to transition that power over to the mind. And energy flows where attention goes. So that's also going to start increasing the energetic pathways and the meridians. So everything is interconnected, but we get quote unquote, people get discouraged and people get stuck based on trying to beat a dead horse. Like do the same thing over and over. That's insanity. Like let's get creative and try to find the path of least resistance. And that's where we're able to make the best efficient change.
But I also think that it goes back to the idea that we are always seeking outside of ourselves and we're looking for answers or roadmap from external sources. So when we hear about these amazing case studies and stories that are associated with breath work or associated with DeMartini's method or associated with the meditation of Joe Dispenza, we say, I want that outcome, so I should do that. But then we're starting to do it, and it's like it either doesn't resonate, it feels like a task, it feels like a chore, it feels really hard. And we're not taking that as feedback to say, let me take a step back here and let me tap into what I need. And part of this is this concept of inner reflection, you know, leaning into what aligns for you, leaning into intuitively what you need. A lot of us don't know, like, don't have this capability anymore because society and programming has ripped it away from us. It honestly takes a bit of a practice nowadays in order to ask yourself either out loud or in your head, like, what do I need? What is good for me in this moment? And that's kind of what I love about what we do. You do. I'm more of the analytical, logical part of this, but for you, the
I'm
skill set that
illogical.
shush, the skill set that you have and the technique that you created, the integrative response testing, you're able to help guide where the person is at by looking at all of these buckets, looking at the physical, the biochemical, the energetic, the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and create that roadmap for that person And the more that we compound that and help them understand themselves, that's how they start to regain that ability. So I think that that's a really cool thing, that it's almost impossible to put this on a website for anyone to understand. It's
Yeah.
like that's
I
one of
mean,
the.
I
Go ahead.
was gonna say it's like just jumping back, personal development, it's a journey and it's not to
Yeah.
get down on yourself because the only failure in life is to stop trying. Everything else is just a feedback mechanism. So whether you're not getting results, whether your results are pain, whether, you're stuck, it's all just a feedback mechanism showing you that, hey, you might have just gotten results and then tap this out. So now we need to
Yep.
increase the awareness. We need to look beyond what we have been doing. But that's the beautiful aspect of, the integrated response testing is that we're already evaluating all those different possibilities and options and putting them, not as one, this is, you have to deprogram ourselves because in society we're taught that, if there's an issue, well, let's just take a pill to solve it.
Yeah.
Meaning if there's one problem, there's one thing to fix it, but that's not how it's not how the laws of the universe, the law is one of the many. So every once in a while you'll have that home run where it's, a 1-to-1 ratio and it just collapses and all is beautiful, but that's 1% of the time. So 99% of the time, it's that one to the many. And we got to figure out, okay, so what's the many things that I need to do to be able to create this one change that I really want? And part of that's, getting a clear vision of where you want to direct your life because, we could see something from Dispenza or something online. It's like, oh my God, this is awesome. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
And and then you realize that that was motivation, which is external, which was connected to what somebody else was really going to benefit the most from, which is why they benefited from it. And that's actually not in alignment with who we are authentically, which is why we're not getting results. So, so there's so many different aspects to it, but when we can gather all of that data and information, then we actually have the best amount of awareness to make the best decisions to actually achieve the results that are in alignment with the individual.
100%. And I think something you said, I just kind of a different way of saying it, is that personal development is about learning, but it's about unlearning. And you called it the deprogramming. And I think that's a really, really important point for people to understand, because this isn't just about adding more and more tools to the toolbox, like meditation, like breath work, you know, um, affirmations, whatever it is. But this is also about unlearning certain programs that have kept you stuck or kept
And
you in
unlearning
fear.
is a very
Harder.
difficult trait to own. It's like if you look at society right now, there's so much division and people are saying, this is right, this is wrong on every landscape of the financial to the politics to et cetera to how to raise a family.
Yeah.
Everybody has their voice of this is right and this is wrong. And it's really you have to deprogram that what's what's right and wrong is going to be different from person to person. And that goes all on every aspect of personal development.
Yeah, and that's definitely a topic that we want to dive deeper into, is talking more about that, because it is really important. And I think that's a really cool thing that you bring to the biointegration technique that you do, is that you can map the vision and you can map the goals, but if you don't unlearn the things that are keeping you stuck, there's only so far you can go.
I always give the analogy of, you know, personal developments, you have one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas. And most people put all their energy on moving themselves forward, but they still have their foot on the brake, so they're really not going anywhere. Where all you had to do is just remove your foot off the brake and poof, you're already levels ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting because the analogy that I gave to a client recently is, she was like, I really just want to focus on my vision. And I said to her, I was like, okay, that's amazing. But the image that I have of you is you looking forward at your vision, big smile on your face, very excited. But if we look behind you, you have a series of chains holding you back. And it was like the work that I do is helping you to move forward, but the work that Dr. Nick does is to break the chains behind you that potentially will limit your ability to move forward. And she's like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense, for why both of these aspects are really important." Because of course, it feels good to work on the vision. It feels good to have this image of what life will look like when life is quote unquote better, and working on the past shit that is potentially painful holding us back, is not as fun. But it's necessary, and there's a very, very strategic and methodical way to go about it that it's actually going to help. There's
You
a
said
lot
it's
of
not fun because that's not what you like to do the
oh,
most.
it's not what I like to do, no.
But
But I'm
but for
just
me,
saying from a
but I'm
superficial
saying,
perspective.
but for me, that is what's most fun.
Yeah,
That's why we're a great team, because we we're the wholeness together. But for
yeah.
me, like, I'm not great at the vision, which is I need you for that aspect.
Hmm.
And you need me to get the foot off the brakes, and I need you to put the foot on the gas. So it's like what's awesome about us is our clients get both sides of it, to be able to allow them to progress in that, whether it's all health, everything is just a feedback for personal development, honestly.
100%. All right, guys, so let's wrap this up for you. So the biggest thing that we're talking about here is that personal development is amazing, but bringing strategy to your personal development is key, because personal development to plateau is a very common theme that we're seeing. And part of it is because people are not able to fully express their true inner potential or their inner power because there is a lack of strength in the vessel. Essentially, what we're saying is that the strength might be that you have very poor health. It might be that you have a very poor functioning energetic system. It might be that, your physical body is broken down too much. It might be that your financial world is broken down. It might be that your business is killing you. It could be any of those things. So it's a matter for you to potentially sit down, sit with yourself, and ask yourself better questions. If you can't do that, it's seeking out someone who can ask you better questions and gather better, unbiased, unemotional data to say, hey, the reason why you're not moving the needle forward when it comes to your personal development is because this foundational piece is weak. It needs to be addressed because you are an integrated human. You are an integrated being. This is not just about health. This is not just about your mental emotional state. This is not just about money. This is not just about one thing. At the end of the day, all of those things come together to allow us to live and function, and also for us to feel whole. We could be like contributing and have a nonprofit and be doing amazing work in the world, but if you're broke as shit and can barely, afford groceries, like, that doesn't feel good. What felt really good about your world contribution starts to not feel good. You start to be resentful. I know people have experienced that. It's like, oh, I feel really good mentally, emotionally. I overcame that divorce. I overcame that really hard thing, but I'm still so sick and my gut is a mess, and I have to think about taking a drive because I constantly have to go to the bathroom. Like, we have to really be clear on what a quality life looks like for us. And we should never settle for anything less. I think that's a really sad part about society right now, is that we're settling. We've been settling for a really long time, but I think that we're normalizing and settling. Or some people are just calling it normal. And at the end of the day, what they're really doing is settling. And so for us, I think part of our mission is to help people not settle, and for people to make bold decisions in their life that are fully aligned, that are going to yield the outcomes that they really want, which is have a good life and feel happy. Joyous. Nick
Yeah,
doesn't like that word happy.
I don't like happiness. It just attracts sadness. The last, I guess, thing, I want to put in is, and this was something that I knew, but going through life, the clinical outcomes personally really owned it is you have to have a mentor or a coach or somebody that's ahead of you. Because even myself, it's like I have all these tools, but if I don't have the awareness of what's holding me back, I can't work on it. So you have to be guided by somebody that has more awareness than you, because that's all this game is. It's an awareness game. And when you have the awareness, then you can actually ask the correct questions, take action on those answers, and you'll get the results how you really want to live, how you really want to be. But without the awareness, we're just fucked. So you have to find somebody that resonates with you, that is, has a greater level of awareness than you. And, it could be, it's always kind of one of my games is, okay, how can I beat my mentor? How can I up level to the point where I don't need them anymore and I'm searching for somebody new? Because that's always the growth transition, unless, your mentor is just as hungry as you and they're constantly growing. So you guys can grow together.
It's funny because I just did a podcast yesterday solo talking about that topic. And I just said, you hit a point in time where you've exhausted your knowledge, your tools, and your skill set for that part of life. And you seek out someone who has the wisdom, the knowledge, more advanced knowledge, tools, and skill set about that bucket of life. And they've also, because it's important for both, they could be really smart, but they should have also achieved the outcomes or similar outcomes that you're looking to achieve.
100%.
And that's how you can surpass, because we are experts in health, but we've been working with mentors to become experts and masters of the other buckets of our life, from, you know, parenting and family to
Financial to
finances and etc. So, you work with your strengths, as you said, and then you leverage other people in order to help you gain the wisdom, knowledge, and mastery of these other areas of life.
You don't get to the mountaintop by yourself.
Exactly. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed it. Leave us a comment, request for another topic. This is our jam and we love it, but we'll see you on the next podcast. We thank you so much for being an avid listener of Integrative You Radio, formerly known as Integrative Wellness Radio. We appreciate all of your support. We love your comments. Please visit us on social media as well as our website to see all of the fun things happening behind the scenes and the new amazing content and courses that is being rolled out on a monthly basis. We hope to see you there.